Hi guys, today's list on discussion of short topics in orthopedics are Cavus foot, Scheitzker classification for tibial fractures, and some fracture displacement in intertrochanteric fracture femur. So the first topic is Cavus foot. You can see this picture. This is the normal foot alignment. Cavus, pes means foot. Cavus means arch. Increased arch is known as cavus foot. You can see the rear view. This is the normal foot alignment. Here you will see the hind foot varus associated with cavus. Just to see the rear foot view also. Okay. So then going to the causes, they will ask what is pes cavus and what are all the causes. For an increased arch, the causes are from central nervous system causes, spinal cord causes, peripheral nervous system causes, and muscular causes. You can trace from the central nervous system, you will have cerebral palsy and Friedreich's ataxia. And going to the spinal cord, you will have spinal cord tumor, spina bifida, poliomyelitis, and tethered cord syndrome. Then from spinal cord to the peripheral nervous system, you will have Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, hereditary neuropathies. Then from peripheral nervous system, going to the muscular causes, you will have Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. Okay. So in peripheral nervous system, you will also have traumatic peripheral nerve lesions. In case of foot drop, you will have equinus deformity. Okay. So going to the types, you will have anterior cavus and posterior cavus. See that from the posterior cavus, it involves calcaneum. Okay. It will be associated with some amount of heel varus. Anterior cavus, which is due to forefoot equinus, mainly first and second metatarsal. Always forefoot equinus will be accompanied by forefoot adduction. So hindfoot varus, forefoot adduction. You will have from forefoot, you will have equinus, and you will have a hindfoot deformity will also cause equinus. Okay, that is cavus, increased arch. Going to the clinical, you will have another severe variety, combined variety, you will have anterior and posterior cavus, both. So what are the clinics? You will have a high eye arch and you will have a callosities, calluses over the forefoot and hindfoot, metatarsalgia, pain over the metatarsal regions, plantar fascia contraction. You will have recurrent ankle instability, which is due secondary to the varus heel alignment. These are all the clinical features. So there is a test called as Coleman block test. Here, this is a wooden block you can keep in over the lateral aspect of the foot by dropping the first and second and third metatarsals into plantar flexion and pronation. This is to differentiate the deformity which is from hindfoot or forefoot. If at all the hindfoot deformity is corrected, then there is flexible hindfoot deformity, which rigid forefoot deformity. Hindfoot corrected, the deformity is in forefoot. If the hindfoot is not corrected, then the deformity is in from hindfoot. To differentiate how it is flexible or a rigid. Okay. This is to differentiate flexible from a rigid hindfoot. And another thing is, if at all the block you kept will correct the hindfoot, then the deformity is due to the forefoot. Going to the management. If at all is a flexible hindfoot varus, then you will have two treatment is lateral heel wedge raise. Okay. Then you will have some physiotherapies, stretching exercises like plantar fascia stretching exercises. If at all there is a contracture which is not amenable to the physiotherapy, you can go for Steenler's release, that is a release of plantar aponeurosis. Going to that, in a severe cavus in a young child, you will go for plantar release with metatarsal osteotomy. I already told that the severe varieties will have both hindfoot and forefoot. In forefoot, we already dealt with, it will be with first and second metatarsal. So we will go for metatarsal osteotomies also. In case of very rigid hindfoot, you will go for triple arthrodesis. Okay. This is regarding the cavus foot. So going to the Scheitzker classification, this is for proximal tibial plateau. You will have 6 types. The first type is lateral condylar split fracture. See that if you haven't car traffic accident, if your car is going to hit over the lateral condyle or the lateral aspect of the proximal leg, you will have a lateral condyle split fracture. Okay. Second type is split associated with depression. This is the depression. Third type is pure central depression. Okay. You will have a pure central depression. Fourth type is medial tibial plateau split. Okay. So lateral condyle, split, split depression, pure central depression, followed by medial condyle plateau, followed by bicondylar. This is the bicondylar tibial plateau fracture. This is metaphyseal and diaphyseal split. This is the diaphyseal fragment. This is the metaphyseal fragment. These are the 6 things you will see in Shadesकर classification. In type 1, you can go for screws, either CC screws, or you can go for lateral buttress split. In type 2, you need to elevate the depression, see that how much amount there is a depression. You can go for even screws and lateral condyle buttress splits. In type 3, definitely you need to elevate because there is a more amount of depression. You need to keep a bone graft and put a plate with a RAF screws. Type 4, same thing, medial plateau also amenable for plate fixation. Type 5, you need to do bicondylar columnar fixation. These 2 sides should be fixed with the lateral condyle proximal tibial plate and medial side condyle plateau tibial plate. You will have both contour plates, or you can use T-buttress plate also on the medial side. So same thing, 6th should also be fixed with the plate. So this is regarding the Shadesकर classification. There is another classification called Hall and Moore classification. The important classification is Shadesकर classification. There is one another classification you will have, that is the 4-quadrant classification. Okay. So going to intertrochanteric fracture, nothing more I will deal with this X-ray. Actually, this is an intertrochanteric fracture. If you see the involvement of lesser trochanter, this is an unstable fracture. You will see the displacements are flexion, abduction, external rotation. Okay. Flexion is due to the flexus, iliopsoas. Abduction is due to the abductors, which attach to the greater trochanter, gluteus medius and minimus. These are the chief abductors. Abduction of the proximal fragment. External rotation is due to the short external rotators. Distal fragment, this short fragment will go for adduction due to the pull of the adductors, which is on the medial side. This is regarding the displacement, flexion, abduction, external rotation, and adduction of the shaft fragment. So usually intertrochanteric fracture line extends from greater trochanter to lesser trochanter. This is stable intertrochanteric fracture. Okay. If at all lesser trochanter involvement is there, then it is an unstable fracture. Posteromedial comminution is there, then it is an unstable fracture. If at all there is a reverse oblique fracture, then it is an unstable fracture. If at all intertrochanteric fracture associated with subtrochanteric extension, then it is also an unstable fracture. So these are the unstable part of intertrochanteric fracture. You will have 2 classifications for this. One is Evans classification and another one is Boyd and Griffin's classification. Okay. Evans classification is based on the stability. You can also reduce on table and see whether the posteromedial cortex is intact or not for planning of fixation. Okay. I have a rough plan. Boyd and Griffin, as everyone knows, it is a type 1 is a linear line from greater trochanter to lesser trochanter, that is stable. Type 2 is, next one is associated with lesser trochanter. Type 3 is usually with reverse oblique, and type 4 is with subtrochanteric extension. Okay. So going to fixation, to know about the fixation, we should know which is stable fracture, which is unstable fracture. We already dealt with is a stable fracture. These are linear fracture and extending from greater trochanter to lesser trochanter. In case of unstable pattern, we already discussed LT involvement, posteromedial comminution, subtrochanteric extension, reverse oblique fracture. These are the unstable pattern. So going to the fixation, stable fracture of intertrochanteric can be fixed with DHS or PFN, extramedullary or intramedullary implant. Unstable fracture should be fixed with intramedullary nailing. Why? Because if you fixed a reverse oblique fracture with an DHS, there will be because of the adductor pull of the shaft fragment, the implant will fail. Okay, so always go for intramedullary nailing in case of unstable fracture. Then the second thing, why PFN is better than DHS? Because of the momentum. Okay, and the implant distance, leave around. One is intramedullary, the distance is low comparing to the extramedullary implant. You can see here, this will have a more momentum so that implant breakage or failure is less. If there is an intramedullary implant, the arm should be lesser when compared to the DHS. So it is biomechanically or biomechanically superior to DHS PFR. Okay. One thing they are asked in DHS is tip apex distance. This was given by Baumgartner, which is the tip of the screw to the tip of the femoral head. You should see in both AP and lateral view. This should be less than 25 millimeter. This is to calculate importance. Why it is important? Because to see the screw cutout, okay, because of failure, implant failure. This is regarding the treatment of intertrochanteric fracture. There is another classification on the Toronzo classification for intertrochanteric fracture. There are Boyd and Griffin, Toronzo classification, Kyle's classification. You will have Evans classification. A lot more there are. There are many classifications described. Either you can remember two classification. One is Evans and Boyd and Griffin. Okay, thank you. This is about today's lecture.
Okay, hello everyone. This is Dr. Sheenam Bansal. So today we will start the femoral head fractures. In the femoral head fractures, firstly, you need to know about classifications and then you need to know about the treatment. In the classification, you have three classifications. That is, firstly, there is Pipkin's classification. In the Pipkin's classification, it is fractures associated with posterior dislocation are taken into consideration. It is of four types. Firstly is the infrafoveal. Infrafoveal, that means the fracture is not involving the weight bearing portion. And two is suprafoveal, fracture involving the weight bearing portion. And three is fracture associated with neck of femur. And fourth is fracture associated with acetabular fracture. So disadvantages of this classification is that it didn't take the anterior dislocation into consideration, and second disadvantage is it didn't talk about the articular cartilage damage. So second classification is Broomback classification. In the Broomback classification, you can see he added anterior dislocation in between the third and fourth type. So it is same like Pipkins, but we can see here there is third is neck of femur fracture associated, and fifth is acetabular fracture associated, and fourth is anterior dislocation associated with femoral head fracture. Now type 3 is, so there is third type of classification, that is Chiron classification. In the Chiron classification, you can see here it is of 5 types: 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Type 1 is osteochondral lesions. Then type 2 is less than 1/4 femoral head is involved. Third is less than 1/3 femoral head is involved. Fourth is less than half femoral head is involved. And 5 is impaction injury. So this was all about the classification. In the treatment part, we can do either the conservative treatment and we can either do the operative treatment. Firstly, if we talk about the Pipkin's classification, in type 1 Pipkin's, we already discussed that it doesn't involve the type 1 Pipkin doesn't involve the weight bearing portion. So you can do the conservative treatment here. In the type 2, if there is less than 1 millimeter step off, articular step off, then you can do the conservative, otherwise you will have to do the operative. Then if there is posterior wall less than 20% fractured, then you can do the conservative, otherwise operative. In the operative treatment, you can do the open reduction internal fixation. You have to do the open reduction internal fixation if there is suprafoveal fracture and more than 1 millimeter step off. And if fracture is associated with neck of femur, then you will do the ORIF. If acetabular fracture is associated, then you can do the anterior approach for head of femur, and you can do treat the acetabular fracture according to the type of fracture in the acetabular fractures. So this was all about the femoral head fractures. Then excision of the fragment can be done if a fragment is less and is not of significance, like in type 1 fractures. In the type 1 fractures, you can also do the excision of the fragment. So now we will discuss the acetabular fractures. In the acetabular fractures, firstly, we will do the classification and then we will do the management. In the classification, you have the Judy and Letourneur classification. Judy and Letourneur classification. He gave the two types, that is elementary fractures and associated fractures. In the elementary fracture, we have posterior column, posterior wall, then we have anterior column, anterior wall, then we have transverse fractures. In the associated fractures, you have both column fractures, you have posterior column plus posterior wall, you have anterior column or anterior wall plus posterior hemitransverse. Then you also have T-type fractures. So these are the Judy and Letourneur classification. Then you can also have the anterior column or anterior wall plus posterior column fractures. So this was all about the classification. Then in the radiographs, here we have one important radiograph, that is Judy view. In the Judy view, you have two views, that is iliac view and one is the obturator view. In the iliac view, firstly, how will you take the Judy views? You will, if this is the deceased side, then you will elevate the normal side by 40 degree. Okay. You will elevate the normal side by 40 degree. And this is the, if you are now taking the view of this side, this is the iliac view and this is the obturator view. Okay. Now, if you want to take the iliac view of this side, you will have to raise this side. Okay. This is the iliac view, this is the obturator view if you are elevating the normal side by 40 degree. In the iliac view, what will you see? In the iliac view, you will see the anterior wall plus posterior column. And in the obturator view, what will you see? You will see the posterior wall plus anterior column. And in the obturator view, what is there? I've already told you, you will see the posterior wall plus anterior column. Now in the management, yes, in the radiography, you will see the bull sign in the posterior column fractures, and you will also see the spur sign if both column fracture is there. Okay. Now, in the X-ray, if there is Marta's angle if more than 45 degree, okay, then you will do the conservative treatment. Now, what is a Marta's angle? Straight line from the femoral head and one line you will draw at the fracture surface. So this is if this is more than 45 degree, then you will do the conservative treatment. Now in the management, for the anterior column fractures, you can do anterior approach. For the posterior column fractures, you can do posterior approach. If both column fractures, what will you do? You will do the extended iliofemoral approach. Okay. Now, next is I will discuss three approaches with you. That is ilioinguinal approach, iliofemoral approach, and then third is the modified Stoppa's approach. Okay. Now, modified Stoppa is for the quadrilateral plate. So you have to take that. If this is a person, this is a pubic symphysis, you will take the horizontal incision above the pubic symphysis. Okay. Now, in the modified Stoppa's approach, you have to take care that you don't damage the corona mortis artery. Why corona mortis? Because it it is a junction of the two arteries, obturator artery and external iliac artery. In the iliofemoral approach, ASIS osteotomy is done. Okay. Now, what is the benefit of ASIS osteotomy? You will not damage the inguinal ligament, and that's how you will prevent the inguinal hernia. In this approach, what happens? You can damage the femoral artery and inguinal ligament. If you are damaging the inguinal ligament, what will happen? There is more chances of inguinal hernia post-operative. So this was all about the acetabular fractures. Thank you so much.